FinanceStrategy.com.
Hi, this is Chris again, looking at the upcoming December 15th week in the financial markets. You can see I have the economic calendar in front of you, and Monday has basically two things worth watching. There is monetary policy meeting minutes out of Australia, and that'll be interesting to see what their take of the global economy is. And then HSBC manufacturing PMI, which gives you an idea of the global economy as well. Not necessarily something you can trade directly from, but it just gives you a general vibe. Going into Tuesday, we have German manufacturing PMI. That, of course, will move the DAX and the Euro. We have CPI year over year coming out of Great Britain. That would be a mover of both the FTSE and the pound. And then we have the economic sentiment out of Germany, the ZEW number. That, again, is another DAX and Euro-centric number. Going a little bit lower, we really don't see much for the rest of the day. Building permits just do not carry the weight they once did in the United States. Going into the Wednesday session, we have average earnings index coming out of Britain. That, of course, can move the FTSE, but the claimant count change will probably be the number that most people focus on. It's, I think, unemployment numbers, really. Monetary Policy Committee meeting minutes from last month will also move the pound and the FTSE. And then finally, as we get into the U.S. session, we have CPI in Europe coming out as we roll over into the core CPI in the United States and the FOMC statement. That could be huge. We'll have to wait and see. Federal funds target rate will not change. Really, that's not expected. If it did, that really would throw the markets into turmoil. Going into Thursday, the 18th, we have Business Climate Index, the German IFO numbers, retail sales out of Britain, and the U.S. dollar could be a little bit volatile due to the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index. That, of course, will move the stock markets as well. And then finally, on the Friday session, really most of it is going to do with Canada. The BOJ does have a press conference. They're going to say that they think the yen's overvalued, that it should continue to weaken, blah, blah, blah. That's really not much in the way of a surprise. So with that, let's take a look at some weekly charts and see what the general sentiment this week might be. Looking at the S&P 500, you can see we have fallen quite a bit during the week. Pretty strong negative candle, and could continue to see a little bit of selling pressure. Really, at this point in time, though, we're just waiting for an opportunity to buy the S&P again. We think there's probably a trend line somewhere in this neighborhood, so maybe about 1950 or so, perhaps. The buyers step in and calls can be purchased. Right now, though, we would anticipate that the short-term move will be to the downside. Looking at the euro US dollar, you can see that we are in fact continuing to drop on the daily and of course the weekly as well. What we find interesting is that 125 did in fact offer resistance again, and we think that there's resistance all the way to 128.6. So we're looking for little short-term rallies in order to start buying puts, as the euro should continue to get beat up against the US dollar over the longer term, perhaps heading to about 120.50. And looking at the gold markets, you can see that we did in fact rise during the course of the week with 1240 acting as resistance. Because of this, we feel that the sellers are going to step in at any moment and push this market back down. If we get above 1250, we recognize that as a short-term breakout, but truthfully we feel that we're going to bounce around in this area. And finally, looking at the FTSE, it looks horrible. However, having said that, we are getting to an area where there should be significant support. So we're expecting a little bit of a bounce on a supportive candle on the 63 to the 6100 range. We might be able to start buying calls, take a little bit of a flyer on a return, essentially making this one big consolidation area. Below 6100, though, things get really ugly really fast. And with that, we've taken a look at the upcoming week of December 15th in the financial markets.